Hi lovely viewers, it's me again, your one and only Mutati Mpundu. Welcome to my YouTube channel. If this is your first time on my channel, kindly subscribe to my YouTube channel by hitting the red subscribe button down below and turn the bell icon to join the notification squad. Don't forget to like, share and leave a comment. Tell me what you think about this video in the comment section below. I'll be super glad to hear from you lovely viewers.
I beg to move that the House do now resolve into Committee of Supply on the estimates of revenue and expenditure for the period 1st January 2023 to 31st December 2023, presented to the National Assembly on Friday, 30th September 2022. This is pursuant to Article 202 of the Constitution of Zambia Amendment Act Number 2 of 2016. Madam, I'm a bearer of a message from the President of the Republic of Zambia, Mr. Hakainde Hichilema, recommending favorable consideration of the motion that I now lay on the table.
The question is that the House do now resolve into Committee of Supply on the estimates of revenue and expenditure for the year 1st January 2023 to 31st December 2023, together with the annual borrowing plan presented to the National Assembly in September 2022. Any debate? The Honorable Minister of Finance and National Planning.
Yes. Madam Speaker, this is the second budget that the UPND administration is presenting to this House. During the first year of being in office, the administration has achieved significant socio-economic milestones. Madam Speaker, from being a country known for negative narratives such as crashing debt, worst performing currency in the world, rising inflation, and stagnating growth, our country has now regained respect, hope, admiration among other nations of the world for the strong effort we are making to improve the economy and livelihoods of our people. Madam Speaker, the UPND government has laid a firm foundation for restoring debt sustainability. The stability of the exchange rate of our currency has been convincingly restored. On top of that, we have lowered inflation, and of course, there is now budget credibility. In simple terms, this means that government is now spending in accordance with what Parliament approves, with only minimum deviations. Madam, in the social sector, we are providing free education up to grade 12, as we have always promised in our manifestos. We recruited an unprecedented number of teachers and frontline medical personnel. In addition, we increased the number of beneficiaries and the transfer value under the social cash transfer program. Further, we've cleared all outstanding pension arrears under the Public Pension Service Fund. Madam Speaker, we have delivered a bankable blueprint for national development, the 8th National Development Plan, covering the period 2022 to 2026. Our commitment to economic, social, and structural reforms contained in the plan helped us secure an arrangement under the extended credit facility from the IMF. The program with the IMF has enabled government to make progress in resolving the debt crisis left, of course, by my friends across there. It has also helped to unlock resources from bilateral and multilateral development partners to support our development agenda. Madam, achieving so much over so short a time period has not happened by chance. It has not happened by chance. Rather, it reflects the character of the UPND and its leadership. The UPND is methodical in its approach, and it is a goal-getting organization. The progress that government has made over the past year should therefore give hope to our citizens that any outstanding development challenges will be confronted with similar zeal and dedication. Madam Speaker, now that the economy is stabilized, this government will turn its attention to addressing some of the critical outstanding development issues in our country. Among these are job creation, better incomes, and infrastructure, especially roads. To achieve this, it is imperative that our economy grows bigger. Growth not just in 1 year, but growth continuously every year, forever. Madam, during the official opening of the second session of the 13th National Assembly, the President of the Republic, Mr. Hichilema, emphasized the need to achieve socio-economic transformation by implementing measures to stimulate growth and ultimately improve the livelihoods of our people. It is in this regard that the theme for the 2023 budget is, and I quote, stimulating economic growth for improved livelihoods, end of quote. Madam Speaker, the 2023 budget, therefore, provides the policy framework, resources, and incentives to drive growth. The policies, strategies, and measures contained in this budget will go a long way towards unlocking local and foreign investment, promoting value addition, and enhancing trade. This will stimulate growth, create jobs, and improve livelihoods of our citizens. Madam Speaker, this budget addresses in 4 parts. Part 1 highlights the global and domestic economic developments in 2022. Part 2 presents the macroeconomic objectives, policies, and strategies for the 2023 fiscal year. Part 3 provides details of the estimates of revenue and expenditure, as well as the borrowing requirements for 2023. In Part 4, I will conclude this address. Part 1, global and domestic economic developments in 2022. Global economic developments. Madam Speaker, in 2022, 3 notable events have dragged global growth down, namely the conflict in Russia and Ukraine, partial lockdowns in China related to COVID-19, and tighter financial conditions in the advanced economies. These developments have led to the downward revision of global growth to 3.2% from 6.1% recorded in 2021. Consequently, prices of commodities such as copper weakened to an average of $7,422 per metric ton in September from $9,550 per metric ton in December 2021. Madam, the spillover from the Russia-Ukraine conflict has led to supply-side disruptions. One of the consequences has been an increase in the prices of critical commodities such as petroleum products and fertilizers. The average crude oil price in the first half of 2022 rose to $104.07 per barrel from $69 per barrel recorded during the same period in 2021. That led to higher domestic petroleum prices at the pumps, with the diesel price peaking at 28 kwacha wangwe per litre in July. Similarly, the international price for fertilizer, as measured by the Fertilizers Price Index, increased by 60.5% per metric ton between August 2021 and August 2022. Regarding the domestic economic development, let me start with economic growth. Madam Speaker, the economy has continued to grow, although at a slower rate. By the end of this year, GDP is projected to grow by 3% compared to a recovery of 4.6% last year. The slowdown in growth is mainly attributed to lower output in agriculture due to the late onset of rains, drought, and flash floods in some parts of the country. Weak performance was also recorded in the construction sector. Budget performance. Madam Speaker, the overall budget performance in 2022 is said to be one of the most favorable in many years. Revenues have so far exceeded the target, while expenditure has been contained within the target. A very important aspect of the budget so far is that there has been a high degree of credibility and certainty in the release of funds. Deviations from the budget are within the permissible 15% variation. Unlike in the past, government has consistently been making monthly budgetary releases in accordance with the requirements of ministries, provinces, and agencies. Madam, a budget with less credibility diverts quite significantly from what Parliament approves. With the deviations, it is often the social sectors that lose out. Indeed, for many years, Zambian budgets have suffered from lack of credibility. As an example, year after year, this House would approve and appropriate the Constituency Development Fund, CDF. But for 9 consecutive years, from 2011 to 2019, the money was not fully released. Madam Speaker, total revenues and grants for the period January to August 2022 amounted to 72.1 billion and were 3.5% above the budget target of 69.7 billion kwacha. Tax revenue stood at 54.4 billion, non-tax revenue at 13.5 billion, while grants were at 4.2 billion kwacha. The positive performance was mainly attributed to increased collections in corporate tax and pay-as-you-earn. By the end of the year, 2022, total revenue and grants are expected to be 101.04 billion kwacha against the budget target of 100.7 billion kwacha. Madam, total expenditure for the period January to August 2022 amounted to 94.3 billion kwacha against the target of 110.2. Of the total expenditure, 85.1 billion was financed from domestic resources, while 9.2 was foreign finance. Notable expenses were the 2022 Census of Population and Housing, the Constituency Development Fund, CDF, and dismantling of arrears. Others were payment of retirement benefits and government contributions under the Public Service Pension Fund and the Local Authorities Superannuation Fund. Madam Speaker, the budget deficit for 2022 was projected at 6.7%, 6.7% of GDP. The end year deficit is, however, now projected to be 9.8% of GDP. Debt position. Madam Speaker, Zambia's unsustainable debt has been in the news for a long time. At a personal level, the national indebtedness has hit most people through the depreciation of the kwacha, rising inflation, and poor funding for essential services. Madam, when I presented the budget last year, government undertook to resolve this problem and not leave it hanging as it has been since 2016. We are almost there. Given the extent of the debt problem, its resolution required engagement with the creditors to restructure the debts so that it becomes affordable to service. Madam Speaker, while the creditors recognized that it was necessary to restructure our debt, they were also alive to the risk that Zambia might not take steps to prevent the reoccurrence of another debt crisis. Debt restructuring cannot be useful if shortly afterwards Zambia once again got into another unsustainable debt situation. This is where the IMF comes in. Madam Speaker, Zambia is a member of the IMF, and we actually partly own it, and it is part of the IMF. Madam Speaker, it is shocking that some members don't know that we partly own the IMF. Madam Speaker, this is where the IMF comes in. Zambia is a member of the IMF, and it is also very true that we partly own it. And it is part of the IMF's mandate to provide assurance to creditors that an indebted country has put in place measures to better manage its economy. To undertake this task, the IMF itself needed to be convinced that indeed the country, that is Zambia, has got its act together. Through the policy pronouncements contained in the 8th National Development Plan and its implementation, the IMF and other creditors are now fully convinced that Zambia is worthy supporting. They are now supporting us. With the IMF-supported program in place, Zambia is now engaging the creditors so as to conclude the debt restructuring, which will then result in debt reducing to affordable levels. This, Madam Speaker, is something we've been struggling with since 2016. Now it is being done. In the meantime, Madam Speaker, the stock of public external debt amounted to $14.87 billion end June 2022. Of this amount, central government external debt was $13.25 billion, while guaranteed and non-guaranteed external debt for state-owned enterprises was $1.5 billion and $113.7 billion respectively. Madam, central government external debt increased by 1.6% to $13.25 billion end June 2022 from $13.04 end December 2021. This was on account of disbursement, mainly from multilateral creditors. Loans from multilateral creditors, such as the IMF and the World Bank, are obtained on very concessional terms, meaning around 5 years of grace period, very low interest rates, sometimes zero, and are repayable over a long time period. The stock of central government external debt includes $1.8 billion principal arrears and $860 two reasons. Firstly, there are some projects carried over from the previous government which were financed by loans. Whereas many were cancelled, as you recall, it was deemed necessary to carry on with some others because the projects had reached advanced stage. We are not there, Madam Speaker, to say we cancel anything because it was under PF. If it made sense and it's at a critical level, we carry on with it. So some of the borrowing was to finish these projects. Secondly, the concessional loans I've just mentioned are needed to revive key economic sectors so that the country has capacity to service the restructured debt. These funds are also needed to finance essential services such as education and health. Madam Speaker, the stock of government guarantees was $1.5 billion end June 2022. ZESCO and the Kafia Gorge Lower Hydropower Project accounted for 93% of these. Madam, the stock of domestic debt, that is treasury bills and government bonds, increased by 5.3% to 203.9 as end August 2022 from 192.9 end December 2021. The funds were raised to finance the budget. Domestic arrears, Madam Speaker, the stock of audited central government domestic arrears or pending bills, excluding fuel and electricity, decreased by 8.4% to 44 billion end June 2022 from 48 billion end December 2021. The reduction is due to government paying suppliers of goods and services and curbing the accumulation of new arrears. By doing so, we have begun addressing the injustice of government impoverishing its people by delaying to pay for goods and services provided. Madam, when fuel arrears and outstanding ZESCO bills to independent power producers are included, the stock of domestic arrears decreased by 4.4% to 76.4 billion kwacha end June 2022 from 80 billion kwacha end December 2021. Madam Speaker, to halt the accumulation of domestic arrears and to reduce the stock, the government will continue to implement the dismantling of domestic arrears strategy. The strategy will, among other things, link procurement to the approved budget and provide funds to dismantle the existing arrears. Monetary and financial performance. Madam Speaker, the growth in consumer prices as measured by inflation rates has slowed to single digits. For September 2022, inflation was recorded at 9.9% from 22.1% in September last year. The key drivers of lower inflation have been appreciation of the kwacha and the improved supply of food items. Madam, the amount of money lent by the banking system grew by 13% in the first half of 2022 against a contraction of 5.4% in the second half of 2021. The increase was largely due to accelerated disbursement to eligible financial services providers from funds provided by the Bank of Zambia under the targeted medium-term refinancing facility, as well as support economic recovery during the COVID period. We recognize, however, that financing remains a challenge, especially for the SMEs. Madam, the performance of the banking sector remains strong, supported by growth in capital through retained earnings. Liquidity conditions were also favorable on account of higher stock of liquid assets and disbursements from the targeted medium-term refinancing facility. Asset quality improved as the non-performing loans ratio continued below the 10% prudential benchmark at 6.4% end August 2022. The improvement of the credit performance was largely attributable to recoveries, restructuring of credit facilities, and bad loan write-offs. Madam, the performance of the non-bank financial institutions has also improved. The ratio of non-performing loans reduced to 13.8% end August 2022 from 23% August 2021. This is attributed to government clearance of third-party arrears remaining current in remitting loan instruments for civil servants to non-bank financial institutions. In other words, Madam Speaker, that problem whereby civil servants got loans and they had stopovers for the money to be deducted, but the Treasury was failing to remit, that problem has now ended. External sector performance. Madam Speaker, preliminary data indicate that exports were almost $6 billion during the first half of 2022, compared to $5.2 billion during the same period last year, a growth of 14.3%. This outturn was largely explained by the increase in copper exports earnings that rose by 12% to $4.4 billion, driven by higher copper prices. Imports also increased by 41.5% to $4.3 billion, supported mostly by the appreciation of the kwacha against the dollar and improved macroeconomic activity. Most of the imports were capital items and raw materials used in production. Overall, the trade balance remained in surplus at $1.6 billion. Madam, as at end August 2022, gross international reserves were $3 billion, representing 3.5 months of import cover. This is above the target of at least 3 months of import cover for 2022. Madam Speaker, on a year-to-year basis, the kwacha appreciated by 5.2% to 15.79 kwacha per US dollar. The gain has largely been on account of improved supply of foreign exchange, mainly owing to increased inflows from the mining sector and greater confidence in the government, particularly commitment to reforms. The exchange rate of the kwacha against major currencies has been relatively stable over this period. I now move on to part 2, Madam Speaker, macroeconomic objectives. Madam Speaker, the new Dawn administration has laid a solid foundation to stimulate growth, create jobs, and improve the livelihoods of our people. This will help us attain the Vision 2030 of becoming a prosperous middle-income nation. Madam, to consolidate and build on the achievements on the economic front, the following macroeconomic objectives will be pursued in 2023. A, attain real GDP growth rate of at least 4%. B, reduce inflation to within the target band of 6 to 8% by the end of the year. C, maintain international reserves above 3 months of import cover. D, mobilize domestic revenue to at least 20.9% of GDP. E, achieve a fiscal deficit of not more than 7.7% of GDP. F, limit domestic borrowing to not more than 3% of GDP. Policies and strategies for 2023. Madam Speaker, I will now present the policies and strategies that underpin the allocation of resources in the 2023 budget. These are prescribed according to the strategic development areas of the 8th National Development Plan. namely economic transformation and job creation, human and social development, environmental sustainability, and good governance environment. Let me now talk about economic transformation and job creation. Madam Speaker, the problems that we've faced, which I just described, emanated mainly from debt and sustainability. As we just heard, these problems are now under control. The discussion with the creditors for restructuring our debts have started. The exchange rate of the kwacha is stable, inflation is falling, and we've stepped up expenditure on social services for our people. However, serious issues remain outstanding, and these include limited job opportunities at all levels, from the most educated to the uneducated. For those in employment, average earnings are generally low. Our infrastructure, such as roads, railways, energy, schools, and hospitals, require a lot of attention. I must also add that even where infrastructure exists, a lot of it requires attention in terms of maintenance and repairs. These issues come out very often with lots of passion in this House from the members of Parliament. Madam Speaker, whilst there have been attempts by past administrations to address these development challenges, it is clear that little progress has been made, particularly in creating decent job opportunities. This is due in part to the fact that the population is expanding much faster than the few jobs that get created. But the issues of providing jobs, better incomes, better infrastructure, and better social services are issues where we must succeed at all costs. Madam Speaker, Zambia will not fail. We take inspiration from countries that were poorer than us, with less natural resources than ourselves, and yet they've transformed themselves into prosperous and progressive economies. In the process, they've provided millions of jobs, upgrading their infrastructure to first world-class standards, and providing decent livelihoods to their people. The success stories of the Southeast Asian countries have been told over and over again. The formula for their success is not rocket science. Economic success requires creating an enabling macroeconomic environment, embracing the private sector, creating a conducive legal and administrative environment that is friendly to business, educating the people and keeping them healthy. Once these conditions are established, it becomes easy to attract investment. These are all things that we are capable of emulating, provided, of course, we are willing to change our mindsets, perceptions about the development process. And this is what we are going to do. It is clear that it is only through stimulating and sustaining economic growth that we can create enough jobs to reduce poverty, to generate sufficient tax revenue, to fund infrastructure, pay for social services, improve the livelihoods of our people, and thereby reduce inequality. Madam, growing the economy must also be explained. It simply means that each year, Zambia's production of goods and services must increase from what was produced the previous year. Not just a bit, but significant increase, and not just from one year to the next, but every year, production must exceed that of the previous year. That's what is meant by sustainable economic growth for reducing poverty. To achieve this, we must love and promote investments. This is what's changed Asia. To achieve what I've just described, Madam, it is necessary that social partners collaborate and work together. The private sector is to take the center stage in the economic transformation journey. It is the private sector that has to invest and manage enterprises that engage in the ever-expanding production. Government's role is to design and implement, together with partners, policies and strategies to attract and secure investment in sectors such as agriculture, mining, tourism, manufacturing, that will all drive our economy. Further, Madam Speaker, government must maintain an economic and business environment that supports growth. It must also invest in supporting infrastructure and manpower development. This must be done without corruption while ensuring judicious use of public funds. Private citizens also have a very important role to play. Each one of us must appreciate our responsibilities as citizens. Above all, we must understand that the common good can only be so because we have, as individuals, contributed to each to the best of our ability. The principles I've just outlined are what will guide us as we implement the policies and strategies to attract investment in sectors such as agriculture, mining, tourism, and manufacturing that will drive growth. This, in turn, will raise economic performance. Madam Speaker, I will therefore now present the specifics of performance, policies, and strategies in economic transformation and job creation in the development area. Starting with agriculture, livestock, and fisheries sector. Madam Speaker, agriculture, livestock, and fisheries remain the main source of livelihood for the majority of our people. It is the largest employer of our population, provides us with food, raw materials for industry, and earns us foreign exchange. Madam, in the crop subsector, the performance was generally weak during the last agricultural season. The production of crops such as maize, rice, sorghum, and cassava declined due to the late onset of rains, as well as drought and flash floods in some parts of the country. Madam Speaker, to increase crop productivity among small-scale farmers, the government is improving extension service delivery. This year, government has commenced with the recruitment of 256 extension officers, and additional extension officers will be recruited in 2023. Government, Madam Speaker, will procure 1,623 extension kits, 1,000 tablets, 621 motorbikes, and rehabilitate over 536 camp houses. With all these measures, 1.5 million small-scale farmers will be provided with extension services through physical visits and e-extension platforms. Madam, with regard to irrigation development, government will construct a total of 40 dams across the country over the medium term. In 2023, 16 dams will be constructed. To actualize the Chiansi irrigation scheme in Kafue, government has secured financing of $10 million from the African Development Bank to cover 600 hectares in-field irrigation by smallholder farmers. Financing will also be used to establish storage facilities and youth skills development center. This project will benefit over 12,000 people. Madam Speaker, there is need to improve agricultural productivity and we will do this through undertaking comprehensive reforms. I am duty-bound, Madam Speaker, to provide clarity on a false matter that was recently circulating in some social media to the effect that the Farmer Input Support Program, FISIP, will no longer be available because of the IMF-supported program. To the contrary, Madam Speaker, FISIP continues in 2022-2023 with the same strength as before. However, Madam Speaker, in addition to providing input support, FISIP will be reformed to include extension service support, irrigation development, access to finance, support to value addition, and storage and logistics. The program will also ensure better targeting and equity in the provision of subsidies and services. You remember, Madam Speaker, that in the past certain areas were left out. This time, FISIP is based on one Zambia, one nation. Not one-sided, Madam Speaker. The new expanded program will be called the Comprehensive Agriculture Support Program. Under this comprehensive agriculture support program, what is, however, true is that the government will be scrutinizing the beneficiaries in detail, so as to ensure that only the targeted and deserving people receive subsidized fertilizers. My colleague, the Minister of Agriculture, will elaborate on this when he takes the floor to present his budget. When I come to the budget section of this speech, Madam Speaker, I will provide the full details of financial outlay that government is proposing for FISIP in the year 2023-2024 farming season. Madam Speaker, this new approach is important as it will contribute to our national food security, especially at a time like now when the global food supply is tight. It also helps us to uplift many of our small-scale farmers who are, in any case, the producers of most of our food. As we continue with FISIP, Madam Speaker, under the new program, it is also important that we understand its limitations in the development process. Earlier on, I spoke about the paramount importance of the needs of the economy to grow. And growth also means agriculture growing. With the tightness in the global food supplies arising from the war in Ukraine, the world is looking towards parts of Africa with appropriate agronomical conditions to step in and grow more food for export. And the markets are there. Our government has already secured markets, access to the European Union, the United Arab Emirates, South Africa, and China for various crops and livestock such as cattle and goats. It is in that vein, Madam Speaker, that in 2023, the government is set to aggressively revive the development of the farm blocks. This time, we must get it right, and it's going to be right. The main objective is to promote diversification, sustainability, and jobs in the agri-food sector in the country, especially for export. Farm block, just to remind ourselves, is a large area of intensive agriculture. Typically, most of them will be 50,000 to 100,000 hectares of land. Each block will have one or two core or main ventures which produce a given agricultural product at large scale. The agricultural product may be an input in a processing factory right on site. just like we have it at Nakambala Sugar Estate there. Along with the core ventures, there will be other farms of different sizes, including small-scale outgrowers, also producing for the on-site factory for processing. Madam, in advancing the revival of the farm block development, I'm confident this will happen because I'm pleased to report that we have already, as we sit now, secured $300 million from the World Bank to develop these farm blocks, such as Nansanga, in Central Province, Luswishi in Copperbelt, and Luena Luapola. This financing is concessional with a maturity period of 30 years and a grace period of 5 years. Madam Speaker, yes, we are borrowing this money. On soft terms, we are borrowing this money.
Order, order, honorable members, order. Order, honorable members.
We are borrowing this money on soft terms to create jobs and to make money for Zambia. Madam Speaker, we are not borrowing this money to buy fire tenders or to buy cameras in the streets.
Order, order.
Madam Speaker, the main objective of this program is to promote diversification, value addition, and jobs in the agri-food sector. The massive production on industrial scale that will happen in farm blocks will satisfy the export markets in Africa and beyond, which I mentioned earlier on. Farm blocks will create thousands of jobs in agriculture production, in the processing factories, and in the allied services. And the jobs are at all levels, from engineers, technicians, agronomists, foremen, ordinary labor, accountants, and even lawyers. Madam Speaker, the government's task in developing a farm block is to put in the key infrastructure like main access and internal roads, power reticulation, water development for irrigation where feasible, and an administrative center so that as many approvals as possible are available on site. So if the farm block is in Nansanga, most of the approvals will be Nansanga. You don't need to come through SACA. With the infrastructure in place, Madam Speaker, governments can then invite the best private sector actors from anywhere to invest alongside with local investors in the farming operations using their own funds. The provision of infrastructure on the farm blocks is helpful to would-be production investors because it enables them to get into production very quickly with little time wasted on the preliminaries. It is expected that the substantial progress will be made in 2023, as I've just said, to develop some farm blocks. Madam Speaker, we are ready for investors. Zambia is back in business. As earlier stated, Madam Speaker, money from the farm block development is available, and the Ministry of Agriculture is currently evaluating a number of potential sites for development before making the final decision. The government intends to implement the farm blocks with excellence and then roll the program to the rest of the country as we gain experience. Madam Speaker, the livestock subsector grew in the first half of 2022. Production of milk, eggs, chicken, beef, and pork increased due to the increase in livestock population and improved animal husbandry practices. Notwithstanding the good performance, the sector experienced outbreaks of diseases such as CBPP and the African swine fever. Government will enhance surveillance, prevention, and control. Specific interventions will include the construction of biosecurity infrastructure on trunk roads and completion of laboratories. Other interventions include establishment of an animal vaccine plant, promotion of veterinary public health and food safety, and enhancement of health research diagnostics. Madam Speaker, government will also develop a robust animal identification and traceability system. This will reduce the levels of stock theft, and it will also enhance the country's potential to export, as it will meet the international standards that require identification and traceability of livestock products from farm to the plate. Madam, the fisheries subsector registered positive performance in the first half of the year. This is attributed to an increase in fish production under both capture fisheries and aquaculture. Capture fisheries increased on account of promotion and enforcement of sustainable fishing methods. The increase in aquaculture was due to provision of credits to small-scale farmers of fish, as well as access to inputs such as fingerlings and feed under the Aquaculture Seed Fund. In 2023, Madam Speaker, government will continue the support to aquaculture venture chain players through Aquaculture Seed Fund, as well as promotion and enforcement of sustainable fishing practices in the capture fisheries. Madam Speaker, to improve safe delivery in the fisheries and livestock subsector, the government will recruit extension officers as well as procure motorbikes and equipment for the livestock subsector. Madam, to improve the policy and the regulatory framework, government will formulate the national animal health and national aquaculture and fisheries policies. Government will also review and amend the Animal Health Act No. 27 of 2010 and Animal Identification Act No. 28 of 2010. Further, to provide an enabling environment and promote livestock production and productivity, government will develop the Livestock Development Bill. Government will also reduce the cost of doing business by automating applications and issuance of licenses, permits, certificates, and other authorizations through the electronic single window. Tourism. Madam Speaker, the tourism sector is still recovering from the adverse effects of COVID-19. The number of international tourist arrivals increased to 496,456 during the first part of 2022, compared to 239,885 in the same period last year. This follows the easing of COVID-19 related restrictions. Madam, the easing of COVID-19 restrictions has enabled us to host a number of meetings, international conferences, and events. Notable among them was the 4th Media Coordination Meeting of the AU, the East and Southern Africa Anti-Money Laundering Group, the 8th African Federation of Institute of Internal Auditors, and local events such as traditional ceremonies. Madam Speaker, to stimulate growth in the sector, government will continue to bid for hosting of meetings, international conferences, and events going forward. In 2023, Zambia, for example, as we keep on bidding for conferences, we'll host the 45th annual meeting of the Association of African Central Banks. So hotels and lodges, get ready. We will also continue to promote tourism development by providing incentives to attract more investments in the sector. I will outline specific incentives in the part 3 of this address. Madam, to sustain the current jobs and create new ones in the sector, government will invest in infrastructure in the Cassava Bay area, a growth pool that was abandoned 10 years ago by my friends across there. Madam Speaker, Diora National Park and other tourism sites will also receive attention to unlock opportunities for investment. To this end, government is in the process of securing $100 million from the World Bank for these investments. Madam Speaker, to increase efficiency in processing applications, government has introduced 26 services for the tourism sector on the government service bus, such as bird hunting licensing, hotel manager practicing certificate, casino license, and professional hunter's license. Government will also streamline the legal framework by reviewing the Zambia Wildlife Act, Tourism and Hospitality Act, and the National Heritage and the Conservation Commission Act. The review will address the challenges of cumbersome regulatory frameworks and uncoordinated procedures among regulatory agencies. In this regard, government is piloting the tourism single license system in Livingstone. And now move on to mining. Madam Speaker, the mining sector continues to be a major driver of the economy, accounting for 17.5% of GDP and over 70% of foreign exchange earnings in 2021. Production has, however, stagnated at an annual average of 797,000 metric tons in the last 5 years. Madam Speaker, while our mining output has stagnated, our northern neighbor, Democratic Republic of Congo, DRC, has not only caught up with our production levels, but also gone significantly well ahead of us. 10 years ago, Zambia was producing about 800,000 tons of copper, while DRC was only producing half, that is 400,000. While we are still at a standstill of around 800,000 tons, DRC has expanded to 1.8 million tons, which is more than twice our production now. All indications are that it won't be long before they hit close to 2.5 million tons. So when we talk, the stagnation of copper mining in Zambia is a vivid example of what happens when partnership between industry and government fails. Zambia has been left behind this potential boom because of the unstable investment climate, especially the frequent arbitrary changes in taxation that reigned in the past decade. This, of course, demotivated potential investors. Attaining the 3 million tons of copper production is very important for the future of our economy. More direct mining jobs will be created. Even more jobs in related and indirect areas, such as transport, engineering, and many more, will be created. It will be a game changer. I'm happy to note that some new mines, small as they are expected to come into production at Kitumbra, in Mumbwa, Kashimye, in Kushi, and Maikera, in Dola. Madam, to boost production in the sector, Madam, to boost production in the sector. This administration will avoid the pitfalls of the past decade and will therefore maintain policy and taxing drive in pursuit of the 3 million tons target copper production in the next 9 years. Already, Madam Speaker, in recognition of this change in approach, the UPND government has already secured to manage an investment of $1.3 billion for the expansion of Kansanshi project and also the development of a brand new enterprise nickel project by First Quantum Minerals. This nickel mine will be the largest in Africa. So, Madam Speaker, whereas mining was not expanding in the last 10 years, in the next 5 years, mining will be expanding. As government works towards attainment of the production capacity of 3 million tons, we are working urgently to resolve the challenges at Konkola and Mopani copper mines. It has taken time to resolve the challenges because of the complex nature of the problems that were left behind. However, a lot of headway has been made, and once we conclude soon, the copper belt will once again spring back to vigorous life of work, spring back to vigorous life of work, unity, and joy. Madam Speaker, diversification in the mining sector is gaining momentum. I've just mentioned the nickel mine in Columbia District, which is set to commence commercial production already in 2023. Coal production at 2 sites in Southern Province and manganese production in Hichilema District of Rapula have also commenced. Madam, government is also embarking on attracting exploration in the sector as part of the effort toward the 3 million tons production target. In this regard, private sector capital is being attracted to carry out area mapping of mineral resources to unlock the unexploited mineral potential. Madam Speaker, to enhance the regulatory oversight in the sector, government will establish a mining regulatory institution. Further, government has enhanced reporting requirements of production, costs, and mineral content. Given the importance of the mining sector to the economy, government will enhance its strategic involvement by enhancing its participation through acquisition of golden shares. These measures will enhance the participation of Zambians in the mining sector while attracting vital large-scale capital, technology, and international experience. Madam, to promote artisanal and small-scale mining, government will implement measures to formalize their operations and support them with the necessary equipment and training to increase production. The formalization will also assist artisanal and small-scale miners to access affordable capital and also to partner with potential foreign investors through joint ventures. Further, government will empower Zambians with mining licenses to create off-take market opportunities and streamline the taxation system. Madam, here is something new. Government will also license buyers of gold and other precious materials, minerals, so that the trade is formalized. So all these small-scale miners in Rangeland here, in Soliland, who smuggle the gold to other places, the buying will now be legalized here in Zambia. So there is no need to be afraid. Madam, and lower rates tax regime that shall apply to artisanal and small-scale miners in Part 3 of my address. Let me urge the small-scale miners to take advantage of the simplified regime and formalize their businesses because it is safer for them than operating in the underground economy, where there's mugging and things like that. Manufacturing. Madam Speaker, manufacturing is critical in the stimulating of economic growth and achieving value addition. However, the contribution of the sector at 9.4% of GDP in 2021 remains low if we are to attain real economic transformation. Madam, government will continue to promote multi-facility economic zones as a way of expanding the country's industrial and manufacturing base. The Lusaka South Multi-Facility Economic Zone has this year attracted more than 30 companies with a total pledged investment of $230 million and 4,000 jobs. Construction of production facilities has commenced for 6 companies, while 21 companies are awaiting approval from ZEMA. Government has also facilitated the establishment of a multi-facility economic zone in Kalumbila to promote mining and non-mining linked manufacturing for both the Zambian and the Congolese mining markets. With this, Kalumbila will become an industrial city grounded on supporting the mining industry. In addition, real estate development will be undertaken in Kalumbila so that there is orderly urbanization as Kalumbila shifts from being a small town to becoming a city. On the Copper Belt, government is promoting the manufacturing of electric car batteries. Madam Speaker, a fertilizer company has commenced operations in Chilanga district with an investment of $138 million. At full capacity, the company will produce 700,000 metric tons of compound D and 300,000 metric tons of urea per annum. This investment has already created 300 jobs for our people, which will increase to 600 when fully operational. This investment will not only result in national self-sufficiency in fertilizer, but will also improve reliability of fertilizer supply and save the country much needed foreign exchange. In other words, Madam Speaker, it won't be long before we stop importing fertilizer in the country. Madam, to improve the business environment, government reviewed the Zambia Development Agency Act, which is the principal legislation to promote trade and investment in the country. The review has led to the subsequent development of 2 bills, namely Zambia Development Agency Bill and the Investment, Trade and Business Development Bill. The Zambia Development Agency Bill provides for the administrative and operational matters of the agency, while Investment, Trade and Business Development Bill provides for the promotion of trade, investment and business development. The 2 bills are currently under consideration by this August House. Madam Speaker, to enhance the contribution of manufacturing, I will, in Part 3 of this address, announce measures to stimulate growth in the sector. Small and medium enterprise development. Madam Speaker, SMEs make significant contribution to production, employment, and income generation of the majority of our people. SMEs represent over 90% of all business in the country and are the largest employer. Madam, the growth of SMEs is largely constrained by lack of affordable finance, market access, and inadequate business development skills. To ensure that SMEs access affordable finance from financial service providers, government will continue to empower them through the Constituency Development Fund and the Citizens Economic Empowerment Commission. Madam Speaker, once the administrative teething problems of the SMEs and cooperatives. Madam, to facilitate access to affordable loans by SMEs from financial institutions, we have increased budgetary allocation to the Zambia Credit Guarantee Scheme. The Bank of Zambia is also collaborating with stakeholders to provide credit guarantees for SMEs. The scheme will commence in 2023 on a pilot basis. Further, Madam Speaker, cooperating partners have provided a 20 million loan guarantee scheme for SMEs through the financial sector. Madam Speaker, to contribute to increase market access for SMEs, government is implementing the Zambia Agribusiness Trade Project with the World Bank. The principal objective of the project is to link emerging farmers and agribusiness SMEs to larger markets. This is being done by structuring support for offtake opportunities. Energy sector, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, a stable and sustainable energy sector is critical for fostering growth in the economy. Government will therefore continue to undertake reforms in the sector to make it more viable and supportive to the economic transformation agenda. Madam, to enhance efficiency in the fuel supplies chain, the government has withdrawn from the importation and supply of petroleum products. This business will now be undertaken by the private sector. This will not only provide business opportunities to Zambians to take part in the sector and create jobs, but it will also lower the transaction costs because middlemen will be eliminated. The role of government will be limited to that of being a regulator and ensuring cost-reflective pricing. In addition, government will ensure the maintenance of strategic reserves. Madam Speaker, to improve efficiency in the petroleum subsector, government is in the process of converting Tazama oil pipeline from a petroleum feedstock carrier to a carrier of finished products, particularly diesel. Madam Speaker, this will reduce the cost of transporting diesel in the country, which is currently brought in by expensive means through trucks. The pipeline is cheaper. In this regard, Indiani will no longer process feedstock, but will play other roles in the petroleum supply chain. Madam Speaker, in the electricity subsector, the country has achieved a surplus. In the electricity subsector, the country has achieved a surplus in electricity generation capacity of 1,156 megawatts. You abandoned is not functioning. This follows the coming on board of the 600 megawatts generation capacity at the Kafia Gorge Hydro Power Station. This has enabled the country to increase exports of electricity to the Southern African power pool worth over $100 million during the first half of this year. Mamba collieries will also be engaged to increase generation to 600 megawatts to improve the energy mix. In other words, Madam Speaker, load shedding for now is bye-bye. Madam Speaker, to facilitate export of power to the East African region, government is in the process of securing financing to complete the remaining in-country circuits for the Zambia, Tanzania, Kenya interconnector. Madam, the aspiration of the new Dawn administration is to provide access to electricity to all Zambians. In this regard, government has continued implementing the Rural Electrification Master Plan, which targets to electrify 1,217 growth centers by 2030. So far, 525 rural growth centers, representing 43.1%, have been electrified. In 2023, government will significantly increase the allocation to the rural electrification program to accelerate the electrification of more rural growth centers. Transport and logistics, Madam Speaker, transport sector plays an important role in economic growth. It facilitates commerce and trade in goods and services, as well as the movement of people. In this regard, government has prioritized the development and maintenance of transport and logistics. Madam Speaker, in the road subsector, there's a lot of outstanding work to be done. To overcome the limitations imposed by scarce financial resources, roads with good traffic volumes will be undertaken using the public-private partnership mode, the PPP. In other words, the private sector will fund the roads and get their money back through the toll fees. Many of the roads are already at the stage of final negotiations with potential partners, and some work is likely to start this year and then progress into the next year and beyond. These roads under PPP include the Lusaka-Ndola dual carriageway, the Chingola-Solwezi, Ndola-Mufulira, Chingola-Kasumbalesa, and the Lumwana-Kambimba roads, which will link Zambia with, what's the name of that mine? Well, Kolwezi in Congo. Further, government will maintain, rehabilitate, and upgrade critical economic roads. Government will also rehabilitate and maintain rural roads across the country in order to improve access to communities using the Zambia National Service that will be re-equipped. I also appeal to my fellow honorable members of parliament and their councils, where appropriate, to invest into road maintenance equipment for fixing rural roads. CDF has been enhanced, and therefore your capacity to do this is there. Madam Speaker, to improve efficiency and reduce spend at the borders. Madam Speaker, to improve efficiency and reduce time spent at the border, government will construct and upgrade access to and infrastructure at key border posts. These include Sakania, Chale, Mokambo, Kambimba, Kipush, Katimamulilo, Bulungu, Granida, Mwami, and Hakainde. The roads leading to Namafulo and Zombe will be rehabilitated. In addition, pontoons will be stationed at Luangwa, that is Feira, and Namafulo. Madam Speaker, government will expedite the establishment of the Kazungula Bridge Authority in collaboration with the government of Botswana. The authority will manage the bridge and the associated infrastructure to foster regional trade, and operationalize the 24-hour working schedule at the border. Madam Speaker, to enhance transport by air, government will commence the upgrading of aerodromes, such as Kasama Honorable. Yes, which they failed to do. Madam Speaker, to enhance transport by air, government will commence the upgrading of aerodromes. The improvements at these aerodromes will promote tourism and trade in the country. Madam, in the rail subsector, government is in discussion with our neighboring countries to improve the rail network to facilitate trade in the region. This is in recognition of the critical role rail transport plays in transforming and developing our country. I move on to information and communication technology. Madam Speaker, information and communication technology is pivotal in socio-economic development and employment creation as it cuts across all sectors. ICTs are also vital for enhancing trade through provision of e-commerce platforms as well as deepening financial inclusion. Madam, to accelerate the development of digital economy, government will implement the National Digital Transformation Strategy and review the Information and Communication Technology Act No. 15 of 2009. This will create an enabling environment for uptake of digital services by enhancing opportunities for investment in infrastructure and the use of digital platforms. Further, government will formulate policies to encourage the uptake of ICTs by persons with disabilities. Madam Speaker, the Postal Services Act No. 22 of 2009 will also be reviewed to adequately address the current challenges with courier services. The objective is to stimulate and ensure fair competition in the provision of postal and courier services. Madam, the new Dawn government has recognized science, technology, and innovation as catalysts for development. In this regard, government is reviewing the existing legislation to create an enabling environment for the adoption and application of science, technology, and innovation. This will improve development planning, electronic communications, data collection, environmental management, and agricultural production. Madam Speaker, I now move to the human and social development issues. Madam Speaker, investment in human capital is critical to stimulating growth and improving livelihoods. Therefore, investment in education, skills, health and water and sanitation, as well as social protection, is essential if we are to attain meaningful development. Focusing now on education and skills, Madam Speaker, education and skills development is a powerful vehicle for reducing intergenerational poverty and inequity. It increases productivity and sets a foundation for sustainable growth. Madam, allow me to tick the checklist of the promises we made to this August House last year in my budget address regarding education and skills development. First was the provision of free education up to grade 12. This, Madam Speaker, we have achieved. Through the elimination of tuition, parent teacher association, and examination fees, resulting in overwhelming enrollment. Second, Madam Speaker, was the recruitment of 30,000 teachers. This we've achieved. Not only 30,000, but 30,406,000 teachers recruited. And as we speak, Madam Speaker, Of these 30,496, 27,645 teachers, 27,645 teachers have been placed on the payroll and receiving their salaries. Madam Speaker, those few who are remaining, we just wait for them to complete the arrival formalities and they'll be put on the payroll. Third, Madam Speaker, was providing bursaries for the vulnerable learners. Again, this will be achieved by making the resources available using the CDF. Madam Speaker, government will continue to implement measures to improve the quality of education. In 2023, 4,500 teachers will be recruited. But on top of that, Madam Speaker, there are teachers who have been stagnant for years and years. They have been acting senior teachers. They have been acting deputy headmasters. They have been acting headmasters. For decades, this was so because there was no money to pay them in their upper positions. In 2023, we are resolving this problem.
Order.
Madam Speaker, as we hire more teachers, priority, of course, will be given to the rural areas which are more deprived. Further, Madam Speaker, while we have made some headway, of significant headway, in teacher availability, challenges remain in the sector. The problem of teachers shunning remote areas, and earning salaries designated for remote schools while actually not being there, that is a real problem that we need to address. The curriculum also needs to be changed to include courses in financial literacy and anti-corruption and others. Madam Speaker, the curriculum must make education responsive to skills needed of industry, as well as investing in ICT infrastructure and use of innovative methods of delivering education. Finally, Madam Speaker, and I think most members here agree with me, many of our schools are not adequately supervised and inspected to ensure adherence to standards. In 2023, we are providing money specifically for ensuring, without fails, that schools are visited by the standards compliance personnel. Madam, to increase access to education, government will next year complete this construction. Madam, to increase access to education, government will next year complete the construction of 56 early childhood education centers. Madam Speaker, you may be aware that there are many high schools. Some going back as 2010, as Honorable Mabumba remembers about the Rwanda High School, which were abandoned midstream in the past 12 years. Government will embark on completing them in 2023. 115 of them, secondary schools in total. Further, government will commence the construction of 120 new high schools with the support of the World Bank. Madam, with regards to tertiary education, government will establish polytechnics to increase access to skills, training for the youth. Government in 2023 commissioned Lundazi, Msombu, and Mborokoso Trades Training Institute. Honorable Mpundu.
Order.
Madam Speaker, last year, government undertook to provide technical skills to youths in each constituency. It was envisaged that in time, the graduates from these colleges, skills colleges, will be the ones to be contracted to undertake CDF projects in the areas for jobs like constructing.
Order, order, honorable members, order. Order.
It was envisaged, Madam Speaker, that the graduates of these skills colleges would be the ones to be contracted to undertake CDF projects in the areas for jobs, so that in each constituencies, the construction of classrooms, blocks, teachers' houses, among others, will be undertaken by the children of that constituency, of that area, who have graduated from the colleges. Local people being turned into local contractors. I am happy to report that this program has made progress and some youths have already graduated. District councils are being encouraged to link them with ongoing contract work under CDF so that they deepen their practical skills before they can become contractors in their own right. Going forward, new intakes will be admitted and this training scheme will continue. Madam Speaker, government will continue to modernize TVET institutions with the state-of-the-art training equipment through the Skills Development Fund. Focus will be directed towards the rehabilitation of workshops, building capacity for trainers, reviewing curricula and syllabi, as well as upgrading the levels of training offered by institutions. Madam Speaker, you may recall that this is also important, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, you may recall that last year we made an undertaking to revisit the issue of meal allowances. Madam Speaker.
Order, order, honorable members, let's pay attention.
Madam Speaker, you may recall that last year we made an undertaking to revisit the issue of meal allowances to improve the welfare of our students in public universities who are on loan schemes. I can now confirm Madam Speaker, I can now confirm that meal allowances will be reintroduced in 2023. Madam Speaker, you may recall that last year, oh, sorry, I've just read this. I move now on to health. Madam Speaker, health is wealth. We cannot stimulate growth without investing in the health of our people. Government will continue to improve the provision of quality health services through recruitment of health personnel, infrastructure development, and provision of drugs and medical supplies. Madam, government has fulfilled its promise of recruiting more than 11,000 health personnel. So far, 8,563 health personnel have been placed on the payroll. The remaining ones, once again, as soon as they complete the arrival formalities, they'll be put on the payroll. I'm delighted to inform this August House that in 2023, government will recruit an additional 3,000 health personnel.
Order.
Madam Speaker, to ensure a resilient healthcare system and attain universal health coverage, government has increased allocations for the purchase of drugs and medical supplies. This will result in improved availability of essential medicines and medical supplies. In addition, government will equip and re-equip health facilities with modern medical equipment. Madam, to improve access to healthcare facilities, government will complete the construction of a specialized hospital in Lusaka for women and children. In addition, 36 district hospitals, 16 mini hospitals, and 83 health posts will be completed across the country. We will also commence the construction of the second phase of mini hospitals with equity, not one-sided. Rehabilitation and the maintenance of health facilities will also be undertaken. Water and sanitation, Madam Speaker, to increase access to clean and safe water and sanitation services, government will accelerate the completion of construction and the rehabilitation of water supply and sanitation infrastructure. To enhance hygiene in public places such as markets and bus stations, government will commence the construction of waterborne sanitation infrastructure across the country at these facilities. Madam, government remains committed to providing clean and safe water for our people. In this regard, Kafulafuta Dam project on the Copper Belt is expected to be completed in 2023, connecting water supply to over 1 million households in Masaiti, Luansha, Pongwe, Ndola districts. The Lusaka Water and Sanitation Project in Matero, Honorable Sampa, and industrial area will also be completed in 2023. Madam Speaker, other water and sanitation projects which are ongoing include the integrated small town supply, the sanitation project in Hakainde and Pika district, transforming rural livelihood in Western Province, Western Zambia, Nkana Water and Sanitation Project, Chipata Water Supply and Sanitation Project, and the Zambia Sanitation Project on the Copper Belt. Madam, government launched the Zambia Water Investment Program to increase access to clean water and sanitation services, especially in the rural areas. Development partners will be engaged to mobilize resources to finance the program. Social protection. Madam Speaker, in addition to the good news I've just been telling you, I have already told you this afternoon, I have a few more in the area of social protection to tell you. First, government will continue to scale up and enhance social protection programs with improved targeting and selection mechanisms to uplift the well-being of the vulnerable. To this end, government has scaled up the social cash transfer program by increasing the number of beneficiaries and the transfer value. As at July 2022, the number of beneficiaries rose to 973,323 from 880,539 in August 2021. By the end of this year, the number of beneficiaries will increase to 1,021,000. In 2023, madam, the number of beneficiaries will rise to 1,374,500. Second, Madam Speaker, government will continue providing education grants for girls in social cash transfer beneficiary households under the Keeping Girls in School initiative. Third, Madam Speaker, the government will continue with the Food Security Pack program and the Public Welfare Assistance program. And fourth, Madam Speaker, and if my colleagues can listen, you recall that for many years, people were waiting for up to 3 years to access their terminal benefits under the Public Service Pensions Fund. I repeat, you recall that for many years, people were waiting for up to 3 years to access their terminal benefits under the Public Pensions Fund. Going forward, Madam Speaker, not anymore. I'm pleased to inform this August House that we are now meeting pension obligations as they fall due. You retire today, 3 months later, which gives time for your papers to be processed. You retire today, the 3 months to process your papers. After the 3 months, you get paid your terminal benefits. Madam Speaker,
order.
Madam Speaker, this is what we call walking the talk. Madam Speaker, now that we are current with the Public Service Pension Fund,
Order, honorable members, order.
now that we are current with the Public Service Pension Fund, beginning in 2023, government will focus on reducing the waiting period of the pensioners under the local authorities superannuation fund. I move on to environmental sustainability, Madam Speaker. To promote a green growth, government will promote sustainable management of the environment, ecosystems, and natural resources. To this end, climate change mitigation and adaptation will be strengthened through the development of climate resilient infrastructure. Madam Speaker, in collaboration with the cooperating partners, we will continue implementing projects aimed at sustainable management of the environment through projects such as transforming landscapes for resilience and development, Zambia Integrated Forestry Landscape Program, and strengthening climate resilience of agricultural livelihood in agroecological areas. Madam Speaker, concern has been raised about the rate of deforestation. This reflects lack of transparency in the exploitation of our forestry resources and poor returns to the loggers for the timbers when they sell it. In a quest to increase the value for loggers, government will in 2023 commence the setting up of timber exchanges which will enable many buyers and many sellers to meet in one place at pre-announced times. These exchanges will provide better transparency. With many buyers available, it is anticipated that our timber will fetch better value. The first exchange is targeted for Nangweshi in Sioma district. Its location in a timber producing area along an excellent highway to the seaports in the south and availability of accommodation makes it an attractive location for the people. When this first timber exchange is successful, more will be opened up. Madam Speaker, government will extend and enhance coverage of early warning systems to facilitate preparedness and prompt response to adverse weather events. A total of 120 automatic weather stations will be installed across the country in 2023, in addition to the 120 installed this year. Madam, to enable the participation of project developers in the carbon market through the United Nations Framework Convention on Climate Change, government signed a Green Growth Compact worth £1 billion with the UK government. This will facilitate foreign direct investment from the UK in renewable energy, urban planning, and trade connectivity, among others. Madam Speaker, to support low carbon development pathways, government is pursuing innovative sources of financing, such as green bonds. In this regard, government has developed guidelines and listing rules for green bond trading. Further, we have commenced sensitization among potential green bond issuers and investors across the country. Additionally, we are undertaking development of a pipeline of potential development projects to be financed through green bonds. I will be announcing incentives to support the development of green bond market in part 3 of my address. Madam, carbon trading has emerged as a promising source of financing while contributing to address the global challenge of climate change. In this regard, government is developing legislation to regulate the carbon market in line with the Kyoto Protocol on climate change. Good governance and environment. Madam Speaker, the new Dawn government is committed to the fight against corruption and building strong governance systems. Government will, by the end of this year, publish the Governance Diagnostic Assessment Report. The assessment will identify the main governance weaknesses and corruption vulnerabilities, as well as measures to address them. Madam, government will also implement fiscal debt management, monetary and external sector policies that will stimulate growth and improve the livelihoods of our people. Government will undertakes to adhere to transparency and accountability in the management of public resources. Madam Speaker, to demonstrate our commitment to these reforms and the fight against corruption, government will increase funding to the law enforcement agencies and oversight institutions. Fiscal policy. Madam Speaker, fiscal policy is anchored on the 8th National Development Plan, objective of attaining fiscal sustainability and creating a platform for inclusive growth. In 2023, the focus will be on improving the fiscal position by reducing the overall deficit to 7.7% of GDP from the projected 9.8% in 2022. Madam, to attain this objective, government is strengthening compliance and administrative capabilities to generate more revenue while keeping the tax policy environment stable and predictable. Madam, government will focus on containing public expenditures within sustainable levels. This will be achieved by ensuring strict adherence to priority projects, doing away with wasteful subsidies, and improving procurement procedures. Government will also curb the accumulation of new arrears by enforcing the use of commitment control system for procurement of goods and services. Domestic revenue mobilization. Madam Speaker, revenue mobilization will focus on strengthening compliance and improving trade facilitation. Madam, to enhance compliance, government will implement the following measures. A, use of electronic fiscal devices. Government will expand the use of electronic fiscal devices which enhanced functionality to all eligible taxpayers and shall be extended to turnover tax and the gaming and betting industry. Interface of government systems. The ZRA tax online system will be interfaced with the integrated financial management system and the land management system. C, mandatory verification of tax liabilities. Government will make it mandatory for all public bodies to verify with the ZRA any tax liabilities and withhold amounts owed to ZRA before making payments to suppliers of goods and services. Madam, to improve trade facilitation, government will implement the following measures. A, border management and trade facilitation. Government will fully operationalize the Border Management and Trade Facilitation Act. This will include the implementation of the coordinated border management concept that will streamline the number of regulatory agencies stationed at the border to 6 from the current maximum number of 18. The remaining agencies at borders must ensure that there is orderliness, there is cleanliness, and efficient service delivery. B, Zambia electronic single window. Government will accelerate the linking with the other agencies that will not be operating physically at the borders to the single window. This will enable them to perform their regulatory functions remotely. C, electronic cargo tracking. Government will implement the electronic cargo tracking system to curtail transit fraud. Debt management. Madam Speaker, the country is under debt distress. This means that we are unable to meet our debt obligations as they fall due. As I've already indicated, government has secured an extended credit facility arrangement with the IMF, which will anchor the debt restructuring process under the G20 Common Framework for Debt Treatment. To this end, government is engaging all the creditors to negotiate and agree the terms and conditions of the debt restructuring. Madam, successful debt restructuring will create fiscal space to enable us to provide support to the developmental programs and also to spend more on those of our people who are vulnerable. In this regard, I wish to acknowledge the support of all our cooperating partners and creditors in securing the extended credit facility. I therefore request all creditors to work with us to quickly conclude the debt restructuring. Madam Speaker, to show our commitment to prudent debt management, the Public Debt Management Act number 15 of 2022 was enacted already in August this year. This act has strengthened public debt management as well as enhanced transparency and accountability. It has also enhanced parliamentary oversight on public debt contraction. Government will, by the end of this year, finalize the regulations. Public financial management, Madam Speaker, to strengthen fiscal controls and governance, government is developing a public financial management strategy for the period 2023 to 2026. The overall objective of the strategy is to enhance its internal controls in the payroll system, improve functionality of IFMIS, and improve the coverage and timeliness of financial reporting. Madam, in 2020, government enacted a new Public Procurement Act and regulations to enhance public procurement. However, new challenges have emerged, such as procurement delays, which require further review of the law and attendant processes. Madam Speaker, to enhance commitment controls, the government will ensure that ministries register purchase orders and other financial commitments in the IFMIS. This will facilitate the link between procurement commitments and the budget to curtail the accumulation of arrears. Madam, to improve the efficiency of the non-tax revenue collection and service delivery to the public, government will integrate various ICT systems to the government service bus platform to facilitate data matching and workflow. Further, an additional 100 services from the 20 institutions will be automated and introduced into the platform. This will bring the total number of public services on the bus to 362 by the end of 2023. To mitigate revenue leakages, payments for public services will be made through electronic channels. Madam Speaker, in line with our decentralization agenda, more resources are going to go to local authorities. This necessitates the strengthening of good financial governance in local authorities by enhancing internal controls and timely reporting. To achieve this, government will develop the local government financial management system. In addition, all local authorities currently on activity-based budgeting will migrate to output-based budgeting systems in 2023. Madam, to enhance internal controls in the management of the payroll, government will introduce workflows on the payroll management and establishment control system aimed at segregating duties. Government will also decentralize the management of the payroll to the respective controlling officers. This is meant to address incidences of ghost workers and other payroll anomalies that result in loss of funds by the government. Decentralization, Madam Speaker, government in this year's budget significantly increased the Constituency Development Fund, CDF. So far, 3 billion kwacha, representing 75% of the allocation, has been released. However, utilization has been unsatisfactory, as less than 10% of the released amounts has been utilized. The underutilization has been due to administrative challenges, such as highly centralized approval processes required under the law, cumbersome procurement procedures, and limited capacity in project preparation, among others. Madam, to address these challenges, government will amend the Constituency Development Fund Act to streamline the approval processes and give more decision-making powers to the local communities. Madam Speaker, we have realized that while we decentralize the funds, we did not decentralize the decision-making processes. This will change. Further, guidelines relating to the management of the CDF budget will be simplified, while capacity building and awareness in communities will also be undertaken. Madam Speaker, I'm happy to inform the nation and the honorary members that the Treasury will not recall any unutilized funds under Madam Speaker,
Order.
just to repeat, I'm happy to inform the nation that the Treasury will not recall any unutilized funds under CDF by the end of this year. Our expectation is that all constituencies will continue with project selection and procurement in line with the CDF guidelines. Madam, from 2024, allocation to the CDF, not 2023. In 2024, allocation to the CDF we propose will take into account population, poverty levels of each constituency, and disbursement will be based on utilization. 2024 to give us time to review and discuss.
Order. Let's listen. Order.
Public-private partnership. Order.
Order. Order. Order.
Madam Speaker.
Honorable members, order. Let's listen.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, in these times when financial resources are limited, and yet the need for infrastructure remains critical, public-private partnership approaches are an alternative source of financing for key developmental projects without overburdening the fiscus. To enhance the effectiveness of PPPs, government will bring a bill to repeal and replace the Public-Private Partnership Act. Later in my address, I will announce specific incentives to make PPPs more attractive for private sector participation. Madam, to further strengthen collaboration between the public and the private sector, government launched the Public-Private Dialogue Forum with the support of cooperating partners. This forum will provide an opportunity for government to interact with the private sector and provide practical solutions to the challenges hindering private sector growth. This underscores government's conviction that the private sector has a pivotal role to play in our economic transformation agenda. Public investment management. Madam Speaker, to ensure value for money in public investments, government will strengthen capacity in public institutions to develop projects and undertake appraisals. Public investment projects will undergo appraisal, and only viable ones will be included in the public investment plan. This will serve as a basis for prioritization of projects for inclusion in the budget. Madam, to enhance efficiency in the development of public investment projects, appraisal and information management, government is developing a public investment management information system. Monetary and financial sector policies. Madam Speaker, to stimulate growth and improve livelihood of our people, government will continue to pursue policies aimed at maintaining price and financial system stability. Madam, monetary policy will therefore continue to rely on the forward-looking framework anchored on the policy rates as a key signal for the policy stance. Madam Speaker, with regard to financial stability, the focus will be on strengthening the macro-prudential function to limit disruption in the provision of financial services. To this end, the Bank of Zambia will operationalize the Financial Stability Committee in accordance with the Bank of Zambia Act No. 5 of 2022. The committee will, among other responsibilities, formulate policies aimed at maintaining overall stability of the financial system. Financial inclusions. Madam Speaker, the level of financial inclusions at 69.4% is still low. Government will therefore step up efforts to increase financial services to unsaved and underserved areas, particularly among the rural population. To this end, government is developing a 2023 to 2027 National Financial Inclusion Strategy, which will provide interventions to increase financial inclusion. external sector policies, government will maintain flexible exchange rate regime while mitigating excessive volatility. To cushion the economy against external shocks, accumulation of international reserves will be enhanced through increased export earnings and promotion of sustainable foreign investment flows. Government will also enhance the compilation of balance of payment statistics through the full operationalization of the electronic balance of payments monitoring system. State-owned enterprises. Madam Speaker, the government is concerned about the performance of state-owned enterprises, commonly known as parastatals. In this regard, government is developing a state-owned enterprise policy to strengthen their governance and improve performance. The policy will also provide a framework for conducting periodic assessment of state-owned enterprises to ensure appropriate interventions. Stronger governance is also required because of some questionable investment decisions that were made by state enterprises. In particular, cash-rich state enterprises shall not be allowed to buy businesses that are of no strategic value or being made to buy existing businesses where those vendors of those businesses believe that the only one who can buy my business at this exorbitant price is a parastatal. That will not be allowed. Gaming and lotteries. Madam Speaker, the gaming and lotteries industry has grown over the years. Despite this growth, the regulatory framework is fragmented, thereby hindering the smooth oversight and collection of revenue from the industry. To address this, government is in the process of developing the gaming and lotteries policy that will facilitate the harmonization of the various pieces of legislation governing the industry. Madam Speaker, I now go to part 3, the 2023 budget. Madam Speaker, government proposes to spend 167.3 billion kwacha, or 31.4 billion kwacha, or 31.4% of GDP. To support this expenditure, 111.6 billion kwacha, or 20.9% of GDP, will be raised as domestic revenue. 1.7 billion kwacha, or 0.3% of GDP, as grants from cooperating partners, and 54 billion, or 10% of GDP, as financing, accounting for amortization of 13.1 billion, or 2.5% of GDP. Financing translates into a fiscal deficit of 40.9 billion, or 7.9% of GDP. Madam, I now present details of the proposed expenditure, revenue, and the borrowing plan for the 2023 budget. Expenditure by functions, starting with the general public services. Madam, I propose to spend 66.2 billion kwacha, or 39.5% of the budget, on the general public services function. Of this amount, 30.5 billion will go towards domestic debt service, while 18.2 billion is for external debt service. Madam, the allocation towards the debt service does not take into account debt restructuring and will be subject to change once agreement is reached with the creditors. We appeal to our creditors to support us so that together we can quickly conclude the debt restructuring. Madam Speaker, to accelerate the dismantling of arrears owed to various suppliers of works, goods, and services, I propose to increase the allocation to 6.8 billion kwacha from 3.1 billion this year. In other words, the allocation for arrears dismantlement is doubling from what it was last year. The increase is in line with government strategy to dismantle arrears and unlock liquidity in the economy. Madam Speaker, to support the operations of the local authorities in the delivery of public services, I propose to allocate 1.3 billion to the Local Government Equalization Fund. Economic affairs, Madam Speaker, to stimulate economic growth and improve livelihoods of our people, I propose to spend 35 billion, or 20.9% of the budget on economic affairs. Madam, I propose to spend 11.2 billion on various interventions in the agriculture, fisheries, and the livestock subsectors in line with the Comprehensive Agriculture Support Program. The program will provide farming inputs, enhance extension services, improve market access, financing to farmers, and develop irrigation systems. Madam Speaker, I therefore propose an allocation of 9.1 billion kwacha for farming inputs, 789.5 million kwacha for extension services, including the procurement of motorbikes, extension kits, electronic tablets, and the rehabilitation of camp houses across the country. I also propose to spend 426.6 million on farm block development and irrigation to reduce dependence on rain-fed agriculture and support agriculture activities all year round. Further, I've allocated 52.7 million for the recruitment of at least 500 extension officers in the livestock, fisheries, and agriculture subsectors. Madam Speaker, I propose to spend 274.4 million kwacha on animal diseases control. This will facilitate the procurement of animal vaccines as well as the construction of an animal vaccine plant at Bamoro here in Chalanga district. Madam Speaker, to scale up economic activity, I propose to spend 5.2 billion on construction, maintenance, and the rehabilitation of various roads across the country. I also propose to allocate 355 million for the upgrade of the aerodromes, which I spoke about earlier on. Madam, I propose to allocate 150 million kwacha towards the improvement of border infrastructure in various parts of the country. This will facilitate trade, reduce the cost of doing businesses. Madam, I propose to increase the allocation. Madam, I propose to increase the allocation to the Constituency Development Fund, CDF, to 4.4 billion kwacha, an increase of 400 million kwacha from this allocation. This means that each constituency will now get 28.3 million.
Order, honorable members, order. 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 Order.
I've been told to repeat, Madam, so I'll repeat. I propose to increase the allocation to the CDF to 4.4 billion kwacha, an increase of 401 million kwacha from this year's allocation. This means that each constituency will now get 28.3 million kwacha.
Order, order. Order, members. Order. Order, honorable members. Order.
Madam, to address the challenges faced by communities, especially in the rural areas, priority will go on improving water and sanitation, at health and education facilities, procurement of school desks, electrification of schools and hospitals, as provision of maternity services at all health centers. Madam Speaker, it is our resolve that by the end of our first term in office, no learner will sit on the floor. Every health facility across the country should have a maternity ward with reticulated water. And by that, Madam Speaker, I mean that at every health center, at every school, there should be a borehole, there should be a solar pump, there should be a tank, so you access water not by carrying it like that, but by opening it up.
Order, order. Order.
Madam, to accelerate rural electrification, I've doubled the allocation to the rural electrification program to 743.6 million. This will support the development of local businesses and create employment opportunities in rural constituencies as they respond to the increased demand for goods and services under the CDF. Madam Speaker, I propose to promote local and international tourism. I propose to spend 366.3 million on tourism marketing and infrastructure development. This amount will cater for the upgrading of tourism infrastructure in various places, including Cassava Bay, Liwa, and several others. The funds will also be used to enhance the visibility of Zambia as a tourist destination. Madam, to continue supporting entrepreneurship, development, especially among the youth and women, I propose to spend 397 million kwacha on the Citizens Economic Empowerment Programs. I've also allocated 150 million kwacha to the Zambia Credit Guarantee Scheme to support micro, small, and medium enterprises access to financial services. Madam Speaker,
Order, order. Honorable members on my right, order.
Madam Speaker, I propose to allocate 50 million kwacha towards the support of artisanal and small-scale mining to enable them access the necessary equipment. This will increase the participation of our citizens, especially the youth and women, in the sector. Moving on to education, Madam Speaker, I've allocated 23.2 billion kwacha, or 13.9% of the total budget, to the education function. The allocation reflects government's continued commitment to facilitating the empowerment of our people with the knowledge and skills necessary to fight poverty and illiteracy. Of this amount, Madam Speaker, I think you recall that there were a lot of high schools that were left before and completed, like the Rwanda that I mentioned earlier on. This year, we are providing, for all the schools in the country, we are providing 1.5 billion for constructing, rehabilitating, and completion of ongoing school infrastructure, including, Madam Speaker, those primary schools which were declared by word of mouth. From today, Madam Speaker, the primary schools which were declared by word of mouth, that from now onward you're a high school, but no additional infrastructure constructed. Those will also be sorted out within this. Madam Speaker, 358 million is for what I said earlier on, recruitment of additional teachers and also upgrading of teachers who have been stuck at various levels for decades. This money will sort out that problem. Madam Speaker, in the light of the high premium that this government places on education, I've allocated 930.2 million kwacha for higher education loans and scholarship board. I'm pleased to state that this allocation will cater for student bursaries and the reintroduction of the student meal allowances in line with the promised land. Madam Speaker, earlier on I also said that schools have not been inspected, visited by school inspectors, the so-called standard officers now. To make sure that this is done without fail, I've put aside 40 million kwacha specifically to ensure that every school in the country is inspected every year. Madam Speaker, I move on to health. I propose to spend 17.4 billion kwacha, or 10.4% of the budget on health to improve the provision of quality health. Of this amount, 4.6 billion kwacha has been allocated for the procurement of drugs and medical supplies, representing an increase of 1.2 billion or 35.7% from this year. I've also allocated 1.1 billion for the construction, completion, and the rehabilitation of health facilities across the country. But a further 900 million kwacha has been allocated for the procurement of medical equipment and ambulances, an increase of 383% from 186.4 million this year. This is in response to the unjustifiable challenges that our people continue to face in accessing basic services such as x-rays, which have often resulted in loss of lives. This intervention will not only prevent the loss of lives, but will also minimize the stress that our people experience in seeking medical attention. Madam Speaker, recruitment in the health sector must continue. I therefore propose to spend 307.5 million on the recruitment of 3,000 additional health personnel. Housing and community amenities. Madam Speaker, to improve the provision of safe and clean water, adequate sanitation and decent housing, I propose to spend 2.6 billion or 1.5% of the budget on housing and community amenities. Of this amount, 2.3 billion is for various water supply and sanitation projects, including the construction of water dams and boreholes across the country. Public order and safety. Madam Speaker, to promote public order and safety, I've allocated 5.2 billion kwacha, or 3.1% of the budget. The allocation is for operations, construction, and the rehabilitation of infrastructure, as well as the recruitment of 2,000 police officers. Social protection. Madam Speaker, we value our people, especially the vulnerable. In the 2022 budget, I allocated 6.3 billion kwacha towards social protection. For 2023, I propose to increase the allocation by 29.1% to 8.1 billion. Of this amount, 2.4 billion is for payment of arrears under the Public Service Pension Fund. In other words, you retire, you get paid. While 300 million is for retirement benefits under the Local Authorities Superannuation Fund. Madam, with these allocations, the government will remain current with pension obligations under the Public Service Pension Fund. We will also clear the backlog of the arrears under the Local Authorities Superannuation Fund up to the end of December 2021. Currently, so we clear them up to the end of December 2021. Currently, arrears date back to December 2018. Madam Speaker, to support the vulnerable in our society, I propose to increase the allocation to social cash transfer program by 19.8% to 3.7 billion kwacha, from 3.1 billion this year. I have further allocated 1.2 billion for the food security pack to support the vulnerable but viable farmers, and 133.5 million towards keeping girls in school program. Environmental protection, Madam Speaker, to promote sustainable environmental and natural resource management across the country, I propose to allocate 1.1 billion to the environmental protection function. These funds will be used to implement various projects and programs aimed at strengthening climate change adaptation, resilience, and mitigation. Regarding the proposed first timber exchange in the country, I propose to spend 70 million kwacha. Other functions, Madam Speaker, I propose to allocate a total of 8.6 billion to the functions of defense and recreation, culture, and religion. Of this amount, 165 million has been allocated for the purchase of various sports equipment, as well as support of this amount to support the Honorable Minister. 165 million has been allocated for the purchase of various sports equipment, as well as support for the football national teams and other sports disciplines. Madam Speaker, I now go to the area which many of us don't like. We like spending money, but of course we must raise the money. And please do understand, this money that we are raising is not spending it on ourselves, it's not for buying flash cars, it's not for things like that. It's money that we are taking from you and giving it back to you, so that your children go to school, your nephews can have clean water. So we are taking it to you, but giving it back to you. So when the tax increases, please do understand. Revenue and estimates. Madam Speaker, to meet the proposed expenditure, government expects to raise 167.3 billion kwacha. Of this amount, 111.6 will come from domestic revenue, out of which 93.6 billion will be tax revenues, while 18.1 billion will be non-tax revenues. Grants from cooperating partners will be 1.7 billion kwacha. Madam, the balance of 54 billion will be financing. This will be raised in accordance with the annual borrowing plan as provided for under Section 8 of the Public Debt Management Act No. 15 of 2022. Of this amount, 15.6 billion will be domestic and 38.4 billion external financing. Total resource envelope, Madam Speaker, on revenue measures, I now present the 2023 revenue measures. Direct taxes, Madam Speaker, to mitigate the cost of living for our people, I propose to increase the pay-as-you-earn threshold to 4,800 per month from 4,500 quarterly. In addition, remember what I said, we are paying for the school fees of the children, we are providing for the water, we are giving you CDF, so a lot of money is coming to you.
Order.
Madam,
Order.
in addition, I propose to adjust the tax bands and reduce the rate in the second band to 20% from 25%. Madam, the measure will add 21,509 more workers. It will add 21,509 more workers to those who do not currently pay this tax on account of being below the payee threshold. The measure will also increase disposable income for salaried households by 1 billion kwacha. Madam Speaker, to strengthen the administration of pay-as-you-earn, government will enforce legal provisions for employers to submit employees' taxpayer identification numbers in their monthly returns. Madam, I also propose the following concessions. A, increase tax credit for persons with disabilities to 600 kwacha per month from the current 500. B, abolish the current two-tier taxation system in the telecommunications sector, which provided for 30% tax on profits of up to 250,000 kwacha and 40% on profits above 250,000, and they replace it with a single tax rate of 35%. I introduce a threshold and turnover tax and rental income at 12,000 kwacha per annum to be taxed at 0% and the balance at the applicable turnover tax rate. This measure exempts income of 1,000 or less per month from the turnover tax bracket. I also propose to reduce income tax rate for the lapidary and jewelry facilities in the gemstone industry to 25% from 30% to promote value addition and attract more investment. You can see that there are a lot of tax concessions. The aim is to attract or push exactly to attract more production. E, reduce presumptive tax to 15% from 25% on land-based betting companies. I also propose to reduce withholding tax on winnings from gaming and betting to 15% from 20%. These measures are aimed at improving compliance for the industry and will be for the charges 2023 and 2024. Madam Speaker, I propose to remove 20% withholding tax on the reinsurance, including retrocession, to support the growth of the local insurance industry. Also to exempt from withholding tax interest income earned on green bonds listed on the Securities Exchange in Zambia with maturity of 3 years to encourage investments in projects with environmental benefits. I also want to propose the removal of 15% withholding tax on investment income on life insurance funds to encourage individuals to save or take out investment products with a life insurance component. I'm also proposing to reduce the withholding tax to 0% from 15% on interest earned by individuals from loans advanced by members under the savings groups, such as cooperatives and village banking. In other words, if you have a cooperative or something like that, the income that you earn, which was previously attracting 15%, that tax now gets to 0. J, increase threshold for allowable expenditure incurred in the construction of employee housing to 100,000 kwacha from 20,000 to encourage the provision of accommodation for employees of the farming entity and any other employer. K, to extend the local content allowance at the rate of 2% for income tax purposes to encourage value addition tomato. This is in addition to mango, pineapple, and cassava. Madam, the total revenue loss from these concessions to give back to business and reinvest is 1.06 billion kwacha. Not really. Madam, I also propose the following revenue generation measures: increase property tax, increase property transfer tax to 7.5% from 5%. B, extend the turnover tax regime to service providers in the gig economy. This measure is aimed at improving tax compliance for small business in digital economy. C, replace the current corporate income tax regime with a presumptive tax for artisanal and small-scale mining. The presumptive tax will be based on the gross turnover, less mineral royalty paid at the applicable turnover rate. Madam, the total gain from revenue generating measures under these direct taxes is estimated at 196.9 million kwacha. Value added tax. Madam Speaker, I propose the following concessions under VAT. A, zero rate the supply of milk cans and milking machines to encourage the growth of the dairy subsector and promote utilization of appropriate milk handling equipment. B, zero rate the supply of selected information and communication technology, ICT. Many of you have complained about telephone towers. The tower has been constructed, but the equipment is not there. So to encourage more investment in those final products, we are providing this concession so that those towers get equipped. C, exempt from VAT, gaming, betting, and lotteries to simplify the taxation of this industry and to align it with international good practice. D, exempt from VAT, game animals imported as breeding stock to encourage purchasing of breeding stock. Madam, the total loss from these concessions is estimated at 3.1 billion kwacha. Madam Speaker, I propose the following revenue generating measures. A, standard rate the supply of petrol and diesel effective midnight tonight. This measure is intended to redirect resources from the relatively well-off to create the money I was talking about to give to our children so that they can go to school. So later today, ERP is going to announce the new price of fuel. With this, listen, the price that will be announced tonight, already includes the tax that I'm talking about. Once again, I appeal to you this is money to give maternity wards to your mothers.
Order. Order.
Madam Speaker,
Order.
I also propose to standard rate selected energy-saving appliances and equipment to rationalize the zero-rated supplies for value-added tax purposes. Madam, the total gain from revenue-generating measures under the value-added system is estimated at 6.8 billion kwacha. Madam Speaker, goods imported by the Republican President are currently zero-rated. This means that the President does not pay VAT on imports that are subject to VAT. As a demonstration of our commitment to ensure that every citizen pays a fair share of the tax, I propose to standard rate goods that are subject to VAT at importation. In other words, even goods imported by the President are now subject to VAT. Customs and excise. Madam Speaker, agriculture remains a key driver for poverty reduction in our economy. To promote productivity in the sector, I propose to remove customs duty on the following: A, biological control agents used in agriculture; B, crop growing media called peat moss used in the production of vegetable seedlings; and C, selected tree cropping seedlings. Madam, to encourage investment in various sectors, I propose relief on customs duty for a period of 3 years on the following: A, selected equipment for the music and film industry; B, selected information and communications technology equipment; C, refuse compacted trucks, skip loader vehicles, and road sweepers and skip bins; D, equipment for baling waste; E, prefabricated housing units; F, greenhouse plastics used in agriculture; and G, selected machinery, equipment, and articles in aquaculture. Again, you can see we're trying to lessen the cost of doing business so that you can expand and employ more of our youth. Madam Speaker, I propose other concessions as follows: A, suspend 15% customs duty on imported teller machines for a period of 1 year to improve efficiency in the provision of financial services. B, remove 15% customs duty on gas cylinders to make the use of liquefied petroleum gas affordable, to safeguard the environment and diversify the energy mix. C, reduce customs duty on electrical vehicles to 15% from 30%. This is intended to encourage the use of eco-friendly motor vehicles. In addition, this will reduce heavy dependence on fossil fuels. D, reduce customs duty of 15% from 25% on bicycles. This measure will directly benefit our people who rely on this mode of transportation. E, reduce excise duty on methylated spirit to 60% from 125% to harmonize the excise duty rates on methylated spirit and ethyl alcohol. Madam, the total revenue loss on the concessions and the customs exercise is 379.7 million kwacha. Madam Speaker, I propose the following revenue generation measures under customs and excise. A, reinstate the extra duty on petrol and diesel, effective midnight tonight. B, increase carbon emission surtax by 10% and introduce excise duty at the rate of 15% on various plastic articles to promote the green environment. C, increase specific excise duty on cigarettes to $3.61 per mil from $3.55 per mil. D, increase specific excise duty on unmanufactured tobacco, tobacco refuse, smoking tobacco, whether not containing tobacco substitutes, and water pipes, tobacco to $3.61 kwacha per kg from $3.55. A, introduce excise duty on electronic cigarettes and cartridges at the rate of 145%. F, introduce a surtax at the rate of 5% on imported PVC pipes and HDPE pipes. And G, introduce surtax at the rate of 5% on imported core and increase surtax on imported floor wall tiles to 20% from 5% to support local production. Madam, the total gain on revenue generating measures from customs and excise is estimated at 2.2 billion kwacha. Incentives to stimulate growth. Incentives to stimulate growth. Remember, we are talking about a budget that stimulates growth and creates jobs. Madam, to stimulate growth and improve the livelihood of our people through unlocking of investment in various sectors, I propose to introduce the following tax incentives. Under mining, as I explained earlier, Zambia's mineral production is stagnated around 800,000 metric tons per annum, while our neighbor, DRC, which was behind, has gone way above us, more than twice. To ensure increased production and to reclaim our position as the continent's top copper producer, we need to attract more investment in the mining sector through creation of a conducive environment. It is with this objective that I propose to restructure the mineral royalties regime with respect to copper. The tax will now apply on the incremental value in each adjusted price band as opposed to the aggregate value when the price crosses the respective price threshold. I further propose to reduce the lowest marginal rate to 4% from 5.5%. The revenue loss from this measure is estimated at 2.8, which of course will be regained as we expand production. Madam, and of course to stop the mining industry from collapsing, as we saw in the last 10 years. Madam, I also propose to reduce property transfer tax to 7.5% from 10% on mining rights held by exploration companies to encourage more mining exploration. As we speak right now, there's a lot of exploration in our neighboring countries, and Zambia is losing out. Public-private partnership. Madam Speaker, to address the infrastructure deficit while relieving pressure on the Treasury, I propose to tax incentives to attract public-private partnership infrastructure investments as follows. A, the tax payable for special purpose vehicle under PPP shall be reduced by 20% for the first 5 years that the project makes profit. B, allow a special purpose vehicle to claim wear and tear on a straight line basis at an accelerated rate up to 100%. This is in respect of any implement, plant, and machinery acquired and used by the project for the purpose of that project. C, remove customs duty and exempt from VAT at importation, plant, machinery, and equipment acquired for use in the project. D, allow a special purpose vehicle to claim input VAT where applicable before the commencement of commercial operations. Madam, the revenue loss for this is minimal. Under tourism, Madam Speaker, to stimulate growth in the tourism sector, I propose to suspend customs duty on imports of selected fixtures and fittings, capital equipment, machinery, and safari game viewing vehicles. This incentive will only apply on items that are not locally produced. These measures will be effective for a period of 3 years up to 31st December 2025. The revenue loss from these measures is estimated at 6.4 million kwacha and is meant to assist our hotels industry, which suffered the most under COVID, so that they can recapitalize. Madam, to facilitate increase in tourist arrivals, Madam Speaker, to facilitate increase in tourist arrivals, I propose to waive visa requirements for tourists from the United Kingdom, the United States of America, Canada, Norway, Australia, China, Japan, South Korea, the Gulf, and the European Union. This measure will take effect from midnight tonight. Agro-processing. Madam Speaker, to attract investment into corn starch processing, I propose to introduce income tax concessions for 15 years on income generated from local sales of corn starch by agro-processing businesses operating in the MFEs, industrial parks, or rural areas as follows. A, 0% income tax for charge years 2023 to 2033. B, 50% relief on corporate income tax from 2034 to 2036. C, 25% relief on corporate income tax for charge years 2037 to 2038. And D, 0% withholding tax on dividends declared on profits for charge years 2023 to 2033. Madam, currently there is no domestic production of cornstarch, and therefore the revenue loss is minimum. In manufacturing, to promote out-grower schemes, foster forward and backward linkages, value addition and job creation, I propose to suspend excise duty on locally produced clear beer from cassava to 5% from 10%. In other words, we are encouraging that cassava production to expand in Wapula, the western, northwestern, so that they feed the beer brewery factory. In addition, I propose to suspend excise duty on locally produced clear beer made from malt to 20% from 40%. These measures will apply to the production levels over and above the specified threshold for a period of 3 years and will come into effect in the last quarter of 2023. This measure will have minimal revenue loss. Improving business environment. Madam Speaker, to further enhance enabling environment for the private sector to grow and reduce the cost of doing business, I propose to revise I propose to revise the basis on which environmental impact assessment fees are charged from the value of the investment to a graduated pollution-based classification charge. The revenue loss from this measure is estimated at 20.5 million kwacha. Madam Speaker, I also want to talk about tax amnesty on penalties and interest. Madam, to provide relief to individuals, businesses, and other entities following the adverse effects of COVID-19, government will implement a tax amnesty program on all penalties and interest accumulated up to 30th of September 2022 and will cover all taxes. Madam Speaker, the program will also provide amnesty to non-compliant taxpayers to regularize their tax affairs, appropriately register, and make correct declarations without penalties and interest. Madam, detailed guidelines regarding the modalities of the amnesty program will be published. Madam Speaker, the amnesty will run from midnight tonight. The amnesty will run from midnight tonight to 31st March 2023. I therefore urge taxpayers to take advantage of this initiative before the penalties and the interest are reinstated on the 1st of April 2023. Thereafter, enforcement will be stepped up. Non-tax measures, Madam Speaker, to encourage the growth of courier services, I propose to reduce the upfront license fees for domestic courier operations to 10,000 kwacha from 15,000, and for local courier operations to 5,000 from 10,000 kwacha. I also propose to reduce current fees for selected services that are offered by the patents and companies registration agents. Madam, I propose to revise upwards various fees for services provided under the Department of Cooperatives to make them more cost-effective. Madam Speaker, the net revenue impact of non-tax measures is a minimum loss. Madam, in summary, the total revenue gain from the measures I've proposed is 9.2 billion kwacha, while the revenue loss is 4.3 billion kwacha, which will give us a net revenue gain of 4.9 billion kwacha. Housekeeping measures, Madam Speaker, to update, strengthen, and remove ambiguities in certain provisions of the tax laws and make tax administration more effective, I propose to amend the Income Tax Act, Property Transfer Act, Customs and Excise Act, Value Added Tax, and the Local Government Act, among others. Madam Speaker, all the measures I have outlined, unless otherwise stated, will take effect on 1st January 2023. And, Madam Speaker, as I conclude, in part 4, Madam Speaker, the new Dawn administration is delivering on its promises. Our promise to fix the economy is on course. Growth has rebounded. Budget credibility has been restored. Inflation has been lowered. And the exchange rate is stabilized. And of course, concrete steps are being taken to finalize the restructuring of the debt that we inherited. Madam, education is no longer a preserve of the rich because Our promise of free education is now a reality. We promised to take resources closer to the people, and we've truly done so. And in 2023, we are even increasing. Our citizens are now determining their own priorities, and we give them money to attend to their needs. We promised to recruit teachers and health personnel. We have done so. And now we've deployed more than 41,000 of them, with the majority of them already placed on the payroll very quickly. Madam Speaker, Bali is fixing it.
Order, order, order.
Madam Speaker,
Order, order. Honorable members, can we continue listening?
Madam, education is no longer a preserve of the rich because our promise of free education is now a reality. We promise to take resources close to the people, of course through CDF. We have done so, and in 2023 we are increasing. Our citizens are now determining their own priorities, and they are given money to attend to their needs. We promised to recruit teachers and health personnel. We have done so. And now we have deployed more than 41,000 of them, with the majority already placed on the payroll. Madam Speaker, Bali is fixing it. Madam, challenges remain, especially in the areas of jobs, better incomes, and roads. The new Dawn government is determined to confront these challenges with the same methodical zeal that it is known for. Madam Speaker, the 2023 budget has clearly outlined how jobs will be created in our special economic zones. We dream of an expanding mining sector leading towards the